I'll be honest with you, I didn't want to make this analysis video. My Crash Time 2 analysis video got mixed reception. But then I think to myself, you know what? I'm gonna make this one better. That's why today we are analyzing Crash Time 3. Hi everyone, as always Patrick here. If you're already subscribed, make sure you turn on notifications, otherwise YouTube won't tell you if I posted anything. If you are new to the channel, make sure you watch until the very end and consider subscribing if you like it. Okay, Crash Time 3. Crash Time 3 was developed by Cinetic and published by Calypso Media in 2009. It is obviously a sequel to Crash Time 2. Just like Crash Time 2, Crash Time 3 is a game that I've played once, back when it came out in 2009. I remember that when I played Crash Time 3 all those years ago, I remember enjoying the game, this one, more than Crash Time 2. Does my opinion still hold up? Let's find out. Crash Time 3, just like Crash Time 2, is available on Steam. So all you have to do is to buy the game. It's dirt cheap nowadays, and you can just play it. Well, kind of. I will talk about the issues in a bit. So first, let's analyze the graphics. For a game in 2009, well, it's a bit complicated, but please let me explain. The game does look better than its predecessor, but it's still below average. I will compare the graphics of this game to Crash Time 2 first, and then compare it to other games that were also released in 2009. So let's start by comparing this to Crash Time 2. Crash Time 2 looked good back in 2008. It was definitely colorful and sometimes a bit too shiny, but that's mostly because of the bloom effects. There was also some bad texture work here and there, but most of the time Crash Time 2 was pretty solid graphically. Crash Time 3 is also solid graphically, but it has more issues. There's not that much bloom, but I'm gonna be honest, I actually miss that shiny vehicle aesthetic. The texture work is much better compared to Crash Time 2, however, some buildings still have pretty bad textures, but not as much as in Crash Time 2. Instead of this shiny aesthetic, Crash Time 3 decided to follow this trend of making everything brown and grey. It's not entirely brown and grey, there is some color in this game, but it doesn't hold up as well as the shiny aesthetics in Crash Time 2. To keep this short, the game graphically is an improvement over Crash Time 2, but it's not much of an improvement. Now, what about other games that came out in 2009? In 2009, we had Pannonia Rally, Rally Tough, World Racing Series, not related to Cinetic by the way, that's a completely different series, GM Rally, Stunt Rally, Need for Speed Shift, and of course the big one, Colin McRae Dirt 2. The game definitely looks better than most games I've mentioned, but it just can't compete graphically with games like Need for Speed Shift and Colin McRae Dirt 2. And it shows. Crash Time 3 is a budget open world racing game after all. What about graphical options? The game does support widescreen resolutions like 1080p, the game has anti-aliasing, there is VSync, the game runs at high frame rates so your gameplay is going to be smooth, and the game does have some neat graphical options, so that's all well and good. The game runs on an updated version of the 3D landscape engine, the engine Cinetic always used, but just because it runs on a better improved version, it isn't perfect. Just like its predecessor, Crash Time 2, Crash Time 3 suffers from the same problems. More specifically, two problems. One, there's no anisotropic filtering, and two, there's no FOV slider. I know I've said it in the Crash Time 2 analysis video, but I'm gonna say it here as well. The game is highly moddable, so I don't know why no one thought of bringing those features in. You know, anisotropic filtering, field of view. If there are modders watching this video, can you find a way to get anisotropic filtering and an FOV slider working? Please let me know. What about the stability? The game didn't crash, didn't lag, but it did stutter a few times, but that's only because I was recording this game. When I'm not recording, the game works perfectly fine. It's smooth, and that's the best thing I can say about the stability. It is smooth. Basically, it is a good PC release, but it just lacks few options. Now we can talk about the story. The game starts with a cutscene showing Samir, Ben, and the police department chasing a suspicious vehicle on the airport. This suspicious vehicle is going towards a plane. Samir, Ben, and the police department couldn't catch up, and the suspicious vehicle drives into the plane, causing the plane to explode. After this cutscene, the game goes back in time 7 days earlier, and the narrator, yes, a narrator, explains what's going on in this game. There are good guys, there are bad guys. The bad guys are doing things that you don't want them to do. Stop them. That's the entire story. There are also two subplots. One subplot is about a racing organization that isn't important to the story, and there's also this other subplot about a car smuggler that also isn't important. Wow. To summarize the story, the main plotline is pretty basic. The car smuggler plotline is, well, it exists. And the racing organization plotline, well, it exists. That is all I have to say about the story, honestly. I might as well talk about the gameplay. Thankfully, I have a lot more to say about the gameplay. I'll just say this real quick. Crash Time 3 is an improvement over Crash Time 2 when it comes to the gameplay, but not much of an improvement. The game has many different car types. You have the normal cars, you have the police cars, you have the undercover cars, you have the sports cars, and you even have some crazy ones that you would normally never use, but in this game they are made really well. Every single car in the game has its own max speed. For example, the race cars are obviously going to be faster than normal cars, the weird cars are going to be really slow, and so on and so forth. Oh, hi, Patrick from the future here. Turns out when I was talking about the story, I forgot to talk about the voice acting. So let's quickly talk about this right now. The voice acting is, well,
I'm feeling homesick. Let's head back to the precinct.
You're a big cop already, you know?
But I want to.
All right then.
that is all you need to know about the voice acting. Listen, I know this is a budget game and Cinetic couldn't afford, the best actors in the world, but oh man, it is so bad. Okay, back to the video. Another thing that needs to be talked about is the difficulty improvements. In the previous games, you could choose 3 to 4 difficulty modes depending on a game. Those difficulty modes usually being easy, normal, and hard. In Crash Time 3, the difficulty options are replaced by the star rating system. How does it work? Well, I'll just let the game explain it to you.
Your goal is not only to successfully absolve the tasks, but also as good as possible. Every mission is rated up to 5 stars. If you can keep 5 stars, this is outstanding. It'll cost you stars if you don't meet the requirements, and they are being changed in favor of you. You can successfully complete missions even without receiving any stars, but it won't influence your overall rating positively. You'll soon get the chance to learn more about your rating.
Couldn't have said that any better myself. If there's one more thing I can add to this is the fact that some cases have different tasks. So for example, you can lose stars if you crash your vehicle too much, or sometimes you can lose stars if you don't make it on time. It's not too hard because even if you lose 1 star, the game gives you more time just so you can keep the amount of stars you have right now. So don't worry, it's not a problem. Because of this new feature, Crash Time 3 is easier than older games in the series, but this doesn't mean the game is easy. The game does have some moments when the game just doesn't explain things to you very well, but I'll leave that for the negative aspects of the game. Is the GPS system. It is much more informative and much more accurate compared to the previous games. Unfortunately, you won't be able to see this in my footage because I turned it off. I wanted to make the game more challenging. I wanted to see if I can navigate around the game without this GPS. Another small quality of life improvement is a dedicated button, or key in my case, to the game map. In the previous games, to access the map, you had to either pause the game or go to the main menu to access the map. In Crash Time 3, you have a dedicated button or key, depending on the platform you're playing, for bringing up the map. This is a very good thing because it's quick and sometimes instantaneous. You can also set up waypoints, and the map itself is more informative compared to previous games, so that's always a good change. And yes, just like in Crash Time 2, the map is split into 2 different parts, the city map and the autobahn map. And they are well designed. They are mostly the same when you compare the map from this game to Crash Time 2, but it was slightly modified. Those maps were modified in a way that it feels like a completely different city, despite the fact that the game takes place in the same city as Crash Time 2 and other Crash Time games in that case. Still, that doesn't change the fact that those maps are very well designed. Bonus missions or side missions or whatever you want to call them. I didn't talk about them in my Crash Time 2 analysis video because I wanted to talk about them here. In Crash Time 2, once you completed the game, the main storyline, you had the opportunity to collect 12 different parts. Every single part was seen as this big yellow portal. You drove into it and you could have collected a part. They are all spread around the maps, the 2 different maps the game had. It was 5 for the Autobahn map and 7 for the city map, making it 12 parts in total. And you collected those parts to build a special vehicle called Mad Cop. Once you've collected all 12 parts, you unlocked a special vehicle called Mad Cop, as I've said just a second ago. But along with the vehicle, you also unlocked 2 new cases. Those cases being Mad Cop Part 2 and Mad Cop Part 3. In Mad Cop Part 2, you use the Mad Cop car you built to do a race. A 2-lap race, to be exact, around the Autobahn map. In Mad Cop Part 3, you use the Mad Cop to stop a speed fiend. And after you do those cases and collect those 12 parts, you have achieved the 100% completion of the game. In Crash Time 3, things are a little bit different. At one point in the game, you unlocked a set of cases or missions called Ben Undercover. It is also related to the car smuggler small plot line. Anytime you're in free roam, except when you still have the story to complete, it's very hard to do because you have to do other missions. So all I'm gonna say is just a professional advice, complete the story first. But anyways, anytime you were in the free roam, you could see many different vehicles. All you had to do is to stop those vehicles, take over those vehicles and drive them to the car smuggler. There are not too many vehicles and it won't take you a long time to do this, so no big deal. After you deliver every single vehicle to the car smuggler, you unlock one more case, one bonus case. In this case, you basically have to stop the car smuggler. That's why I've said this is related to the car smuggler small plotline. It's not a big thing, it's not engaging, but it's a nice thing. But it's always a good thing that something like this exists, you know? Once you complete the main storyline, you also unlock stunt show levels. You don't unlock everything immediately, you unlock them one by one. In stunt shows you have to jump over a ramp and land perfectly. If you don't land perfectly, you fail, and if you land perfectly, you unlock the next stunt show, and sometimes you unlock more vehicles for the free roam. It's a pretty basic case. Those are pretty basic cases. You're not going to think much of them, but again, it's nice that they are here. You don't have to complete those to complete the story, but you need to complete those for the 100% completion. Also, about those normal story cases, like I've said before, they are pretty much the same when you compare them to Crash Time 2. So go ahead and compare the cases from Crash Time 3 to Crash Time 2 and you'll see what I mean. Now it's time to talk about the bad stuff about the game. Just before I do this though, you've probably noticed that this analysis video is all over the place. So in case I missed anything, please let me know in the comments down below and I might make a follow-up video on Crash Time 3. Anyways, the bad stuff. There are only 2 bad things I can think of. The first one is with the Ben Undercover cases. Sometimes you can see your vehicles perfectly, so where you drive up to them and then you have this pop-up message saying, this is the vehicle that the smuggler wants, do you want to take it over now? You press yes and then you chase it. But sometimes you can see the same vehicle that the smuggler wants and it just doesn't let you take over. Sometimes you have to shadow your opponent, you have to raise the opponent, you have to pursue the opponent for some reason, because sometimes the game lets you take over those cars immediately, but sometimes you have to do those things. And it's not like you have to do those things first. No, it's just random. It's just random. Why? Can I just, take over the vehicle and drive it to the car smuggler just like that? Do I really need to do those other things? If the game didn't has this annoying thing, then this would have made the undercover thing a lot faster. That's all I'm saying. The second problem is with the stunt show. So remember when I said that you have to land perfectly? This game is very picky when it comes to landing perfectly. You have to land perfectly at the other ramp. If you fly over the ramp, you fail. Like, for no reason. Obviously, if you don't make it to the ramp, you fail, but that's more understandable. But, like I've said, if I fly over the ramp, so I basically completed that stunt, why does it fail me? Why do I have to land perfectly on that one ramp? This doesn't make any sense. This makes the stunt show levels really unfair, and that's why I don't remember them fondly. I've talked about my issues with the graphics in the graphics section of the video, so I'm not going to talk about them again here. Go back to the graphics section if you want to know my problems with the graphics. But hey, wait a minute, what about the sound design and possibly a lot of other things I didn't mention? Well, there's not much to say because most things are carried over from Crash Time 2. That includes the sound design as well, so I'm just gonna say I'm just gonna say the sound design and other things are pretty much the same when you compare this to Crash Time 2 and call it a day. In conclusion, Crash Time 3 is a solid and fun game. It has below average graphics, the story is basic, with the two subplots being meh, they just exist, and the gameplay is fun, just as expected from Crash Time 2, even though the game carries a lot of things from Crash Time 2. Is Crash Time 3 worth checking out? Yeah, I'd say so. The game is dirt cheap on Steam, it often goes on sale, so you can get it for even cheaper, like incredibly cheap. So yeah, I would say go play it, and you will have a lot of fun. Well, kind of. I should say that if you liked Crash Time 2 and the previous Crash Time games, you will like this one as well. If you didn't like the previous Crash Time games, then, well, this game won't really change your mind. But that pretty much sums up everything I wanted to say in this analysis video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.